to the Bernhard Museum. We have a lot of work to do here. Children had a lot of chores to do on the Victorian home, and we have a lot of stuff, so I'm glad that you made it. Let's start in the parlor. Now, this is an 1889 Victorian farmhouse, and this was the Bernhard's home. Now, the Bernhards, Bernhard, and Rosa Bernhard, came from Germany, and eventually they ended up in Auburn in this very house. And this would have been their parlor. If you take a look around, you're going to see that this is kind of like a very fancy living room. So in your parlor, you had all of your really nice things, and a lot of times kids weren't allowed in here. You were kind of messy, you might run around and play and break things. So if you came in here, it was usually with company. You'd sit quietly. You might get to play a musical instrument for your company, but other than that, you weren't allowed in this room. It wasn't for kids. But while you were sitting in here, you and your company, you could look at all of the nice things that was in the parlor. So in your parlor, it's decorated in the Victorian style. Now, when I'm talking about the Victorian style, we're talking about Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria was the queen in England in the 1800s, and this style is called the Victorian. Now, if you take a look around, you're going to see a lot of nature because nature was really popular in the 1800s. And nature is not just taxidermied birds, so stuffed dead animals, or maybe even flowers up on the wall. Nature meant everything. That means you had flowers on your wallpaper. You had landscape paintings. You even had natural materials like seashells that you found. Natural materials like your hair. You might cut a piece of your hair, twist it, tie it, braid it, and you'd make it into a beautiful piece of art. This was almost like a family portrait. This is something that the Bernhards might have done because it represented your family. And don't worry, it didn't mold, it didn't break, it didn't fall apart. This was something that was pretty typical of the Victorians. Now maybe when your company left, you might have to clean up the room, sweep and dust, but then it was probably time for bed. So let's go to the bedroom. Welcome to the Bernhard's master bedroom. In this room, you can kind of get an idea of what your chores are going to be. Remember in the Victorian period, you don't have running water and you don't have electricity. You're going to go to bed when the sun goes down and probably get up when the sun comes up. If you need light and the sun's not up, you're going to have lamps, they're oil lamps, or you're going to have candles. Well, what about running water? Well, let's say you get up, you want to brush your hair, you need to brush your teeth. You don't have a sink. You don't even have an indoor bathroom. That's where your washing table comes in. You have a wash basin, and that means you need water. Who goes and gets water? That's you. So one of the kids is going to have to go outside and go to the well. Well, you have a large hole in the ground, and you've got a pump. So you're going to pump a bucket of water, go and put water in everyone's wash basin. Then you can wash up and start getting ready for the day. But you don't have a bathroom indoors. That means you have an outhouse. Well, an outhouse is outside of the house, and it's a wooden building, big hole in the ground. And you go to the bathroom. But let's say it's the middle of the night, it's raining, maybe there are bears outside, and you don't want to go outside. That means you have a chamber pot. Now your chamber pot is a pot with a lid on it. You pull it out, go to the bathroom, put the lid on it, and put it back. That has to be emptied in the morning. Well, that's another one of your chores. You're going to get everyone's chamber pots, not just yours, and you're going to take them outside to the house, wash it out, and put them back. So now that you've handled your two main chores for the day, you can go over to your dressing table, get everything on, get dressed, and then you're ready for the day. But on the farm, you probably have a lot of brothers and sisters. So we're going to go to the nursery and talk about getting your younger brothers and sisters ready for the day. Welcome to the Bernhard nursery. Now you have your younger brothers and your older sisters. You'd help them get up in the morning, wash up, get dressed, and head out for the day. You might go to school. You might have work on the farm. But you're pretty happy to have all those siblings because there's a lot to do for the day, and the more hands you have working, the less work that you have to do yourself. Let's head over to the kitchen. Welcome to the Bernhard's kitchen. It might look a lot different than your kitchen at home if you see some of the things that are in here, but actually most of these things, they're just like what you have in your kitchen today, just a lot older. They're kind of like the originals. Remember, Victorians didn't have running water, they didn't have electricity. And if you wanted a refrigerator or a sink or a stove, you just had to have a much earlier version. Let's look around for a sink. Now, no running water. How do you get your water? You pump it from the well. Now this is your sink. It's called a dry sink. You have no tap water, so you can't turn on cold and hot running water. You have to go out to the well, pump the water, bring it in, pour it in one of these basins, and do any of your washing up. And then you'd have to dump it back outside. And if you wanted it hot, you had to start a fire on the stove, heat up the water, and put it in one of the basins. Who do you think did all of that? Probably you. That's just one of your chores for washing up. Well, let's say you helped with dinner. It was time to put something away, maybe butter. You wanted to put it somewhere cool so it wouldn't melt. Where's your refrigerator? This is your refrigerator. It's called an ice box. Like a cooler you might have today, you had an insulated box, you put a block of ice inside, and you'd close it, and it would keep your food cool until the ice eventually melted. You'd dump out the water, which you would do again, and you'd get a new block of ice. And let's say it's baking day. You wouldn't put any of that in your refrigerator, your ice box, remember, but you would help with doing all the baking. So you might grind flour, you go and help get butter. Remember, you couldn't just go to the store. You had to go to your cow. You had to get the milk, wait for the cream to rise, get the cream, put it in the crock, and then you would do the dasher, which is kind of like a plunger, up and down for maybe an hour until you had enough butter to put in your baking recipe. And maybe you'd have a pie by the end of the day. You wouldn't want anything to happen to that pie, so you put it in a pie safe. That kept out dust, bugs, maybe mice or anything, and it kept your pie nice and ready for you until it was time for dinner. Where would you bake that pie though? Well, you had to have your stove. Now your oven didn't have any gas or electricity. It usually had coal or it had wood. Those are other things that you had to fetch. Your mom or your dad would probably tend to the fire because you might be a little young to deal with an open fire, but you could definitely go out and get the wood. You could go out and get the coal. You could help with emptying the ashes when it was done and then cleaning up the kitchen afterward. And then you had a lot of utensils. You didn't have a mixer. You didn't have anything electric for dishwashing. All of that was done by hand, and those chores took a lot longer. Usually they were reserved for one day a week because they took so much longer. Good thing you had siblings because they would all help you. And by the time it was the end of the day, you might get to eat, like your pie, some of the things that you had worked on. Let's go look at the dining table and see what that meal might look like. Welcome to the dining room. Once you finish your preparations for dinner, you can finally come and sit down. Now compare this dining room table to yours at home. Do you eat at a table? Do you have glass plates? Do you have silverware? This is definitely fancier than how I eat at home, but during the Victorian period, having a fancier table, having really good etiquette, those were all things that were really important. You had to know your good manners from your bad manners, and you might help your little siblings out, and you might be helped by your older siblings. Now, when you were sitting at this table, you might have your sibling to the left of you, and they might have smaller silverware, and they might have some different things that you've never seen before. We have something on this table called a pusher. Now, it might look like a knife that's bent the wrong way. Well, that helps your little sibling push their food up onto their fork before they might be able to handle a fork and a knife. When you're finished with your meal, you would take everything inside. You would wash it, dry it, polish it, put it away. Even the napkins and the tablecloth, they're going to be washed too, because everything on this table, it can be recycled, it's reused. Nothing's thrown away. You don't have paper towels or paper napkins or plastic utensils. Everything's reused. And that was really important during the Victorian period. And again, in this room, you can see a lot of nature. You might have things on the different utensils that you're using on the table, and even in the decorations around you. Once you're done with this meal, you might be done with your chores finally, but after you washed up. And then you could go to the living room and finally get a little bit of relaxation in. Let's go. Welcome to the Bernhard sitting room. Well, we call this a sitting room, but you would probably think of this room as the living room. After you'd finished dinner, you'd finished your chores, you'd get to come in this room and you'd finally get to relax. You probably have one or two chores to do in here too. You might work on your sewing, your cross stitch, maybe you practice your music, you practice some reading, but then you'd have time for toys, I promise. You might get to play with a doll, you might get to play music that you actually enjoy. Remember, you didn't have a computer, you didn't have internet, you didn't have an iPhone. Anything that you wanted to do with reading or music, you had to do with your family. You had to do on a musical instrument, you had to do with a book. And you did that all together in this room. But one of the really fun toys that you might have had was something called a stereoscope. Now, it's almost like a VR viewer from the 1800s. You'd have this thing and you'd share this with your siblings, And you have this viewer here that would go up against your eyes. You'd have two images on a card. When you put this up to your face, these two images become three-dimensional. You aren't really going anywhere in the Victorian period. You'd be on the farm, you might go around town, but you didn't go on a plane. You really didn't go on a drive. You didn't have that to go on vacations. But with these cards, you could see all over the world. And this was a really cool tool. This was something that you'd want to play with. And it'd be a way that you get to spend the end of your day when you'd done all of your chores, from getting up and getting the water basin, all the way to the end of the day, cleaning up the table. And you'd be relaxing and having fun with your family. It was a lot of work on the Victorian farm, but you did have some time to enjoy it with your family too. Well, thank you for coming to visit today. I hope that we can see you again soon, and I know we had a lot of chores to do, but I think we had a lot of fun doing it. Come again.